Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Cover 2 podcast. My name is Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And today we are doing our NBA Finals recap for the 2021 edition of the NBA Championship. The Milwaukee Bucks are the NBA champions. A lot of people didn't think that would happen before the season or even before the playoffs. But they are the champions. They beat the Phoenix Suns, who also we didn't expect to be there in 6 games. Giannis with 50 points in the last game. He was named the MVP of the series. And Milwaukee gets their first championship in 50 years. So, Jared, I'll toss it off to you first. We'll just get this podcast going. What are your thoughts this Wednesday morning, the next morning after the NBA championship is done? The Bucks win, the Suns lose. Give me all your thoughts on everything about this series.
You know, is this an asterisk next to this championship, Nick?
We're getting into that already.
I'm coming out swinging, man.
Okay.
All the injuries that all these other teams had, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nets, I don't think I could do that though. That's a little disrespect to the Bucks. I mean, it
I thought you really were gonna go into that.
No, it popped into my mind, because I'm still sulking about the Lakers, right, and thinking just what if Anthony Davis and LeBron were fully healthy. But then again, we can say that about a bunch of other teams. And no, the Milwaukee Bucks, they won it because not only were they one of the most healthy teams, throughout the entire playoffs. Giannis Antetokounmpo proved why he is not only the series MVP, but why he was back league MVPs, right? I mean, in this game 6, the closeout game, he looked like the only player to start the game that actually wanted to play. I mean, it was, I know that there's nerves and jitters and guys don't want to make a mistake, right? Because it's a potential closeout game. But I mean, literally, it looked like some JV high school basketball going on out there. Turnovers left and right by both teams. I was tweeting it, and you were retweeting me. Drew Holiday looked like trash, right? I get it. Drew Holiday's made some big plays in this series. He had that big steal and then alley-oop to Giannis in Game 5, right? And he's made some great plays. But I'm sorry, he looked like complete trash. He was 1 for 8 in the first quarter. I believe he had 3 turnovers himself. And then on the Phoenix side, they just couldn't get anything going, right? I think that we were 6 or 7 minutes into the first quarter, and the score was 5-4. Hey guys, y'all know it's the NBA Finals, right? You guys are professionals. It was a little ridiculous. Giannis was the only player, in my opinion, that was hustling up and down the floor, and that looked like he really wanted it. He was the engine that kept his team going. And let's not forget, Giannis is only 3 weeks removed from having a hyperextended knee. Most dudes would be out. So the fact that he's even playing or was playing in the series, to me, is a true testament of not only his leadership, but just his ability to come back from injuries here than almost any other human being alive today. So I just want to give congratulations to the Bucks. Giannis puts up 50 points. It had been 50 years since the Bucks won. Not many people thought, like you mentioned in the open, that the Bucks would get to this point. They're in a small town, right, in New York, and even though they do have Giannis, the 2-time MVP, they don't get the national TV attention that other teams like the Lakers and the Golden State Warriors and the Brooklyn Nets do. So, the fact that this team, wasn't built on a super team, they didn't have a Kevin Durant or LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard, come join forces with Giannis. Yes, they added Drew Holiday and some nice pieces, but Giannis said, we're doing this the long, hard way, right? So, and I think we can all take appreciation for that. So, good for Giannis. I'm happy for him. It's a huge chip off of his shoulder now. And I think this just kind of solidifies him. I think he's already in the Hall of Fame, but, as probably talk about a top 10 player ever already. I think we can start having that discussion now that he's won an NBA championship.
Yeah, well, a lot to dissect from what you said. But what I can agree with you completely on is that Giannis was, he was a superstar in this finals, and it to me took him a level up than he already was. And I'm not the only one that's saying this. Everyone anointing him as the best player in the NBA after this series. I think that's debatable just because a lot of the other best players got hurt and just weren't able to be there, a la Kawhi Leonard, a la LeBron James, a la Anthony Davis. Steph Curry wasn't able to make it because his team sucked. But, it's Giannis, he stepped up. Jared, I mean, our last two podcasts that we did, I believe it was the last two podcasts, we ripped the Bucks in half, both of them. Okay? It was after it was either the 76ers or the Hawks series where Giannis dropped that ball and we were watching it live. It was one of the last few podcasts we did, and we were just ripping him in half, and we were saying how bad the whole team was and how bad all the contracts were. And then we go to game one of the NBA Finals, and they lose, and Giannis can't make free throws, and he's out there looking like Ben Simmons. And then all of a sudden, Jared, like we're here for game 6, and it's completely different. And that's okay. It happens. People play better. People like Giannis, people like Chris Middleton proved us wrong, Jared. And then that's why they ended up winning the NBA Finals. They stepped up. Giannis made his free throws in game 6 and in game 5 and all the other games. He didn't let the Phoenix crowd get to him. And, it's impressive, right? When I look at this Bucks team, that's why they ended up winning the championship. It wasn't because of injuries. It wasn't because of, they were playing the Suns. It was because they just ended up playing harder than everybody else. The top players stepped up, a la Chris Middleton, a la Giannis. So that's how you win. I remember my high school baseball coach telling me, it's not who the best team is that wins the championship. It's who ends up playing the best at the end, right? It's who the hottest team is. And we were able to kind of upset a few teams in our playoff run. We didn't end up winning a championship, but we were a team that shouldn't have gone as far as we did. And it was only because we got hot at the end of the season and were able to beat these kind of monster teams and stuff like that. And that happens sometimes. Sometimes you get a little injury luck. Sometimes you're able to, get into the finals against maybe a team that's a little underrated because of the way the NBA structures it, or a team that's overrated because of the East-West, thing. But it ends up being who the hottest team was. And if you look at like the last couple of years, or last few years really, there was always a little bit of help for any of the NBA champions. I've said this on a podcast in the past. You look at the Warriors teams, got a little bit lucky a couple of their years. The Lakers, obviously, with the pandemic and getting 4 months off last year. Toronto with Clay and everybody getting hurt in the last game. It happens. It happened in the 80s and 90s, too, with certain things. At the end of the season, Jared, you know this in every sport, everybody's banged up. Okay? And it just seemed like, even though Chris Paul and Giannis were hurt at sometimes in those playoffs, they were just able to come back, where Anthony Davis wasn't able to come back, and LeBron wasn't the same, and Kawhi Leonard, obviously with almost a torn ACL, wasn't able to come back, and they were able to win the championship and get to the championship. So I'm never going to knock a team again for getting there because of injuries. Yeah, you can say it, but then go over all the last 6 years of that happening too, and let me know that all those other teams won legitimately, right? So it's happened. The NBA is just that way, especially with the way the season was structured this year, being a quick season, and more players getting hurt than ever. It seemed like these are the two teams that survived. Survival of the fittest, and the Bucks win, and they're impressive. Jared, let's move to the Suns. Okay, they go up 2-0 in this series. They lose 4 in a row, and not only did they lose 4 in a row, but they ended up blowing pretty significant leads in the last 3 games at least. So, Jared, what's your thoughts on the Suns? Especially Chris Paul's future with the team, and overall why this team was never able to beat the Bucks after going up 2-0.
Yeah, well, first of all, Chris Paul last night in his post-game press conference basically shut the door on retirement or anything like that. I believe it was Rachel Nichols who was asking him a question, not necessarily about his future. She didn't even say the word retirement. She had just asked, how Chris Paul was feeling in the moment. And obviously he answered truthfully, and said that he was down and all that stuff. But he said, I'm not retiring, right? Like, I'm coming back next year. It's back to work, I believe, were the exact words that he said. It's just time to get back to work. So to my knowledge, he will be back in a Suns uniform. I'm not sure if his contract is up, but it sounds like he wants to run it back with this Phoenix squad, who obviously is loaded with young talent, right? And I think the crazy thing about this as well for the Suns, let's give them some credit, right? Because we even saw head coach Monty Williams in his post-game conference kind of echo these words that, a lot of times when a team is up and coming, and they get into the playoffs, they may make it to the first round or potentially the second round, and then they get beat, right? And then they come back the following year and they're kind of climbing that ladder, and hopefully they eventually make it to the finals. The Phoenix Suns, like, they skipped a couple steps, right? They went straight to the top right away with a bunch of dudes who had never even made it to the playoffs, right? Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Payne, right? A lot of these guys had never even made it to the playoffs, let alone been to the finals before. So I think for this team, that was an accomplishment in itself for the Suns to even make it to the finals, because at the beginning of the year, I mean, yeah, we kind of knew, okay, this Suns team can be good. They can probably make the playoffs, but please raise your hand if you thought that the Phoenix Suns would be in the finals at the beginning of the year. No, not even.
I'm not raising
Suns,
my hand, dude.
Not even Phoenix Suns fans thought that. Okay, so that's an accomplishment in itself. Let's get to losing 4 games in a row. That's where the accomplishments and all that comes to a head, right? That's where it stops. Because you have all the momentum, you've got the home crowd, you're up 2-0, you go into Milwaukee. All you got to do is win one. All you got to do is steal home court. You protected your home floor. Now you have to go to Milwaukee, and all you got to do is steal one. And they can't do that, right? They let Milwaukee back in, and it's now a 2-2 series. To me, this game is all about adjustments, right? I think you can say that in any sport. There's in-game adjustments and there's game-to-game adjustments. And I think that the Milwaukee Bucks and head coach Budenholzer, they were getting scrutinized for the lack of adjustments that they were doing, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, in the first 2 games, Chris Paul and Devin Booker were going off. Chris Paul was doing whatever he wanted, right? Literally looked like not only the finals MVP, but looked like the NBA MVP. He looked like the 25-year-old Chris Paul. And everyone was killing the Bucks. Why can't you guys make adjustments, whether it was on defense and pick and rolls or offensively, just not having, ball movement, just shooting threes left and right? I think we can say that a little bit about Phoenix. Like, where were their adjustments, right? Yeah, they went up 2-0, and then they let Milwaukee get 2 games at home to tie the series. Where were the Phoenix Suns adjustments? I didn't really see much adjustments from them. And I think that was just one of the biggest things, right? Milwaukee was able to get comfortable. They were able to go back to Phoenix for Game 5. And the moment that Milwaukee won Game 5, to me, I was like, okay, this series is pretty much over now, right? That was the Suns had a chance to win Game 5, and this Game 6 would not have been an elimination game, no matter what, right? Or I'm sorry, not an elimination game for the Suns, but they didn't. And so to me, I'm not necessarily like blaming Monty Williams or blaming any one particular player on Phoenix. I'm just saying, as a whole, I don't think they made enough adjustments from game to game to basically counteract what Giannis and the Bucks were doing. So great experience for the Suns, and I think they will be better for it in the long run. But I think right now, even a day after, this one's going to sting for a little while. I think it's going to be a couple weeks until these Suns can actually digest what happened and be able to move forward.
Yeah, well, it's a learning experience for all the younger guys, because you get that close and you lose. That is just so brutal. It's more brutal for Chris Paul. And I'll let you guys know, Paul has a player option next year for the Suns. So he actually literally has the choice of what team he wants to play for, whether it be the Suns or anybody else. Paul has that option. So if he's saying he's going to go back with Phoenix, I would expect he goes back with the Phoenix. I mean, I don't know where else he would go. I guess maybe the Lakers, but like, why go for?
Nope.
Yeah. Exactly.
We're good.
So, it's for Paul, this sucks. Okay, because he's been going for a championship for 16 years and hasn't won one. And has been, this was the closest he ever got. He'd only got to the Western Conference Finals before with Houston. So this sucks for him. For everybody else, the learning experience. DeAndre Ayton, he seemed to be up for the task some games and absolutely not up for the task in other games. And that's a learning experience. Devin Booker, in a lot of the series, he was impressive in this playoffs, but there was a lot of games where he just would score like 18 points and just wasn't enough. I mean, I had him in my fantasy lineup last night, and he lost me a good chunk of money not doing what he's supposed to do as like the third star in my lineup. You know what I'm saying? Like the guy was terrible last night. So, and DeAndre Ayton, I think he literally disappeared last night. And
did you see Chris Paul on the bench literally having to talk DeAndre Ayton?
That's what I'm saying, Jared.
DeAndre Ayton's head is down, and Chris Paul's like, bro, it's like the third quarter. Like, we still need you. The game is not over. And DeAndre Ayton is literally like, he's like, I don't know what to do. I can't. He looked like a 5-year-old who just lost at like handball or something.
Yeah, I hate that kind of stuff too. Like, get up. It's the NBA Finals, man. What are you doing sulking on the bench? At that point, it was like a 5-point game too, with like 6 minutes to go.
They were getting blown out.
Yeah, it's like when the Suns were doing that against the Clippers and the Lakers, he wasn't doing. It's like, come on, man. But that's what I'm talking about, Jared. It's a learning experience. These guys are still really young. The NBA, when you come into the NBA now, you're really young. You're like 19 years old. It's not like back in the day when these guys were juniors and seniors in college when they were going out to the NBA. And at that point, they're nearly men, right? These are teenagers. These are guys that 1 year out of high school that are coming to the NBA. I'm not saying that's Booker and Ayton, but I'm saying like they're still really young guys, right? They're younger than both of us, realistically. So it's like, they got to the stage and they weren't successful, but they got 10 more years in the tank to figure this out. But for Chris Paul, it's not there. It's similar for guys like Cam Johnson too, and Cameron Payne. They're going to get another chance. It might have been tough road for a guy like Cam Payne, but they're going to get another chance. Do I think it's going to be next year? That's going to be tough, man, because you're going to have, you hope a more healthy Lakers team. We'll see about the Clippers, who's on that team. The Nuggets get Jamal, but stop laughing, Jared. Stop it. Okay. Well, Jamal,
it's your show, bro.
Jamal Murray comes back for the Nuggets. The Utah Jazz will be healthier. We'll see who they add. So it's like, Jerry, it's not easy, man. And this team was a top team in the NBA last year in the Phoenix Suns. But can they do it again? Can they get here again? I cannot confidently say that they will. Now, Jared, I'll ask you this question, and then maybe we can move on after that. Was this the last chance for Chris Paul to get a championship? Straight up. Was this the last time he's ever going to get a chance to win a championship?
Yeah.
As the star guy. Because obviously anybody can end up like Charles Barkley or something like that, Karl Malone, Gary Payton, and end up like joining a super team to try to win a championship, right? But is this the last time as like the guy that he's gonna have a chance?
I think so. And the only reason I say that is because of what you just mentioned, the fact that all those other teams in the Western Conference, will hopefully come back healthy, and the West is already loaded. The West has already been a dominant powerhouse over the Eastern Conference for the last 2 decades. Right? You just mentioned all the teams. The Lakers are going to be better. The Clippers are going to be better. The Warriors will hopefully get Klay Thompson back, right, after his Achilles injury and after missing the last 2 consecutive years with major injuries. So the Warriors are automatically going to be better. You mentioned the Denver Nuggets with Jamal Murray. You mentioned the Utah Jazz. Listen, the Grizzlies, right, made it to the playoffs and won a series this year. So the Grizzlies are no slouch out there.
Forgot about the Warriors.
Yes, there's a lot of competition in the West. And do I think the Suns will make the playoffs next year? Yes, of course. No doubt. The Suns are no longer the garbage team of the West. They will be competitive. They will be somewhere, I think, in that 3 to 6 range as far as seeding. It's just very early prediction. But do I think that they have enough firepower to go up against those other teams in the West if everyone is relatively healthy? I don't see it happening. I think the experience will help them. I think it will hopefully, motivate them and guide them for years down the road. But as far as next year and Chris Paul leading this team, I think that window was closed. I think this was the best opportunity for Chris Paul and for this Phoenix Suns team to win their first championship in 30 plus years. So, like you're right. Chris Paul could still go and join another team. I think he could play a couple more years, but as the main cog, the main piece, yeah, unfortunately, I think that was it. And I'm not here, a huge Paul fan, but you do got to feel for the guy, right? Just played his 16th NBA year, his first time ever to the NBA Finals, and he's this close, and he doesn't get it done. I think that was it.
Yeah, well, it's tough. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that it's his last chance, just because I think that, even with this Suns team, if they were to get back to the finals next year, they have much better chance, just because Booker and Ayton and all the other young guys have developed a little bit more. And like, they didn't help him out last night. Okay. And in most of this series, like, Paul can't be perfect. Not everybody can be Giannis, right? Giannis is a freak, literally. And Chris Paul is, a 6-foot guard. Like, the guy can't, his size actually, makes him not do what other guys can do. And I'm just saying that because it's the NBA. It's the one thing where, like, size really does matter. Okay. Like, Chris Paul last night was scared to shoot because he was small. Like, no disrespect, but like, if Giannis did what Chris Paul did in that game, Giannis wasn't going to turn around and run out and run to the 3-point line because he was going to get his shot blocked. He was going to go up to the rim. So Chris Paul needs other people's help. Okay. Like, Chris Paul cannot do it by himself. Clearly it has to do with his size and his age. And so, he needs help from Booker and Ayton. But I think that can happen. And so I'm not going to say it's his last chance. I think he has a good 1-2 years where he still could do it, but he can't be the guy. He needs help from somebody else. And he's got him on the team already. He's got Devin Booker. He's got DeAndre Ayton. If those guys just stepped up in this series and did what they were supposed to do, like Booker did in the 40-point games he had, then, you can win. It's just everybody didn't play well like the Bucks did. Middleton was really impressive. Giannis was really impressive. Holiday was really impressive on defense most of the series, not necessarily offensive, but that happens, dude. Like, when you're a star on defense, sometimes you don't end up offensively being as good. So, yeah, everybody played their role for the Bucks perfectly, and it worked out. And for the Suns, it didn't. And Jerry, I know you have a question for me, and I don't know what the question is going to be, so I'll let you ask that, because my question's not going to do with it's going to have to do with something else. So, lay it on me. I know you didn't talk to me about this before the podcast, so I can't wait to hear this. Let me hear this.
No, I've got two. The main question is going to come second. But here's the first, and this goes to Milwaukee, because we kind of just talked about Phoenix and their future, at least for the next year or two, right? So let's talk about Milwaukee's future for a minute, right? They obviously they win their first championship in over 50 years. Their team looks pretty solid as far as players coming back. It doesn't seem like they're going to lose anyone significant. Potentially PJ Tucker, because they traded for him, and I'm not sure what his contract looks like. But their key pieces, obviously Giannis, Middleton, Holiday, look to be set in Milwaukee for the foreseeable future. So is Milwaukee, what's their window look like, right? Can we see Milwaukee going back to back? Is Milwaukee going to be championship contenders for the next 3, 4, 5 years? What do you think their window looks like?
I with Giannis, I think their window is as long as he's in his prime, realistically. Like, I mean, this guy is the best he ever has been, and he finally then was able to do it in the big games, like we were talking about. And even though it took like a while for him to figure it out, even like the first couple of games of the NBA Finals, he hadn't figured it out yet. The guy is a freak of nature and is able to just, it's easier for that guy. You know what I'm saying? So for him, it's about like how far Giannis will take them. So yeah, no, their window is a while, and I know he signed a big contract. I know they have Middleton signed up. I know they have Holiday signed up. I forget the amount of years, and my computer's kind of crashing on me a little bit because we're recording right now. But like, I remember when we went back and we were kind of talking trash on him. That I remember saying, "Oh man, the Bucks are stuck with all these guys for a while." So I'll turn that around and say, "Hey, they're stuck with the guys that just won them a championship." for a few years at least. So that their window is that. Giannis is 26, Jared. Did you think he was 26? No. I didn't think he was 26. So Middleton's only 30. Drew Holiday's only 31. You know what I'm saying? Not to mention, they still got Dante DiVincenzo, who was out for the playoffs. Bobby Portis is only 26.
Crazy.
Yeah. He was crazy eyes last night, too. That guy high stepping down the court after fouls, getting texts, shoving Chris Paul, not letting Chris Paul talk to Scott Foster. That was great from that guy.
Hey,
and that's another thing, another underrated thing that happened. What's that?
Oh yeah, I threw this out on Twitter last night. Mark my words. I guarantee the Milwaukee Bucks and their marketing staff, at some point next year, a home game, they're going to have a Bobby Portis bobblehead night. They have to. I mean, the guy he's like royalty in Milwaukee next to Giannis, right? Like they're going to give him the key to the city. It's only right that they do a bobblehead, crazy eyes Bobby Portis night. It's going to happen. They're going to do some type of bobblehead T-shirt, hat, something. They might do some goggles that they give out to everyone. I mean, you just have to. It makes too much sense.
Yeah, no. It'll just be a pair of eyes. That's probably all it will be.
That's all you need.
He also has a player option, by the way, too. So he'll be back in Milwaukee, no doubt. Or maybe he'll look somewhere else because his finals performance made him. It could earn him some money. That could triple his salary. His salary is only like $3-4 million right now. His salary could be tripled with just his finals performance. He didn't do much in the rest of the other series, but man, did that guy step up and ended up being, like last night it was really him and Giannis, and then Chris Middleton, here and there. Chris Middleton made some big shots, but he wasn't consistent the whole game. Who was consistent was Giannis and Bobby Portis, at least in Game 6. So that guy was just important. That's what I'm saying. They got Bobby Portis, Dante DiVincenzo, Pat Connaughton. Lopez is a little older, so I won't throw him into the mix. And then you got Drew Holiday, Middleton, and Giannis is the best player in the NBA right now, or arguably the best player in the NBA, top 5 at least. And now that he's stepped up in the finals, the rest of the NBA should be scared because that guy can do anything, and is just going to get better. Just work on shooting and free throws, and it's over. He's going to win the championship every year.
Yeah. I think now that he's got that championship monkey off his back, he already won everything. He already won the league MVP. He's been, to 5 straight All-Stars, five-time All-NBA, Defensive Player of the Year. He's literally done everything but win the championship up until last night. So you're right. I think Giannis, his mentality, he's got that like Kobe Mamba assassin mentality that not many other players in the league have. Of I'm going to continue to work, right? He's not this like, oh yeah, I won a championship. Now I'm gonna, I signed up. I'm gonna take it easy. I'm gonna relax now. No, Giannis, I think, is going to be even more hungry than ever. He knows he needs to work on his free throws. He knows he needs to work on his, his shooting ability, especially from the outside and the perimeter. So if he can improve in those areas, you're right. I think Giannis will literally be unstoppable, and I think he is going to be hungry to win more and more championships and solidify himself as literally one of the best players in NBA history. So I think that's where his mindset is, right? As not trying to knock other players, but I think it's just human nature sometimes when you get that big contract, when you finally win the championship, I think a lot of people take a sigh of relief and it's like, okay, I can relax, I can ease up. Giannis is kind of like the opposite, right? I mean, he was even saying it before Game 6. He's like, I'm not thinking about the past. I'm not even thinking about the future. I'm thinking about right now in the present. And I think that leadership that he was exuding to his other teammates is what led the Milwaukee Bucks to eventually win this finals Game 6.
Yeah, no, it was impressive. And just to give the facts of the whole contract thing, like I was saying, because I actually finally got it up on my computer, they have the core 3, Holiday, Middleton, and Giannis, for the next 2 years. So like next year and the year after that, under contract with nothing in between. The year after that, the 3rd year, Middleton has a player option. So I won't add that in. But at least for the next 2 years, they have those guys. And then Middleton has a choice. And I assume with how big his contract will be and how old he is, he will probably most likely take that player option. So realistically, for 3 years after this championship, they still have all 3 of those guys. and Giannis is going to get better, and Middleton and Holiday should stay about the same with their production. So there's the window right there, Jared. About 3 years. 3 years where this team could legitimately win a championship with these guys. But yeah, I'll let you ask. You had a second question.
Let's bring up the big question, and I'm just gonna throw this out there because I already started the show, jokingly saying that the Milwaukee Bucks and there should be an asterisk next to their championship. So we're just gonna throw this one out there too. Okay. And this all stems from a quote that Giannis said before he signed his max contract, where he said, "I'm going to stay in Milwaukee till I bring this city a championship," right? Now, I forget if that was posed, a reporter asked him a question as far as, are you going to sign that max contract? Do you see yourself in Milwaukee for life? Obviously, nothing is for certain now. Tom Brady has left the Patriots, right? Michael Jordan left the Chicago Bulls, so nothing is for certain anymore. But do you see Giannis, as loyal of a guy as he is, staying in Milwaukee for the rest of his career? Because in that quote right there, he said, "Till I bring this city a championship." Well, he has now brought this city a championship, and obviously he's going to, I think, continue to agree to that contract. And it's not like he's going to sit here and if Milwaukee doesn't win the championship next year, he's not just going to be sour and ask for a trade. But do you see Giannis staying with the Milwaukee Bucks? Or can you see a situation where at some point he leaves and goes somewhere else?
Well, now that he won the championship is the easy answer. Yeah. If he wouldn't have, I would say absolutely not. He doesn't stay with Milwaukee his whole career. Does he stay with Milwaukee for the next few years? Yeah. But I do think that his whole career. No, he's a legend now. I mean, he's passed up Oscar Robertson easily. As the top NBA player to ever play in Milwaukee, because he won a championship now in the modern era, and nobody watched Oscar Robertson that is watching the Bucks now. Okay, I'm just throwing that out there, but he's the best player ever for this franchise, and he's won a championship. All those guys that say they're going to stick with those teams, they stick with those teams, and then when they don't win the championship, all Damian Lillard, or their team doesn't do what they're supposed to do. They quit on their teams. Chris Paul did it with New Orleans. I know he got traded, but it's because he wanted to get traded. Okay, it happens. Steph's gonna stay with the Warriors because they were the Warriors for 3-4 years. It's the modern NBA. I mean, Kobe almost joined the Clippers. Okay, Kobe Bryant almost joined the Clippers because the Lakers weren't doing what they were supposed to do. So nobody is ever safe. If you're a fan or you're a GM or you're an owner, nobody's ever safe with your star player. But now that he's won a championship and they beat a legitimate team that was healthy in the championship as well, Giannis is staying there forever now. I honestly think that he's staying there forever and that he's not going to leave. But if he wouldn't have won that championship, Jared, I would be answering that completely differently, if that helps with what you maybe expected me to say here.
No, I didn't. I didn't actually. I'm a little stumped right now. To me, I see it as Giannis has won that city a championship the first time in over 50 years. I think he's going to continue to play out his contract. And then whether they win another championship or not, I think it's going to be easier for Giannis to leave because he can leave knowing that he could for that city. And he eventually brought them a championship. I think if he hadn't have won, or, in the next 2 to 3 years for the rest of his contract, if he never wins another championship or if he had never won at all, I think it would have been tougher for him to leave mentally because of the way that he is made up, right? That would be like him walking away without finishing the job, right? He has technically done his job and brought that city a championship. So he can walk away hands clean, clear mind and heart, knowing that I did everything I could for that city. I brought them a championship. I can leave with peace of mind, and this city is still going to, welcome me with open arms, because he will retire a Buck. We are always going to think of Giannis as a Milwaukee Buck. So to me, I think it's easier for him to leave because he's already won a championship. It's not like he's Kevin Durant or some of these other players. It's like, oh, I haven't been able to win, so I'm just going to leave and jump ship. I don't think that Giannis is built that way. He's not wired that way. So I think but obviously those are all projections. I just wanted to throw that out there because, like I said, before he signed that contract and he was in the press conference, he said, I am going to stay in this city until I win them a championship. So he never guaranteed that he's going to stay with Milwaukee forever. And I think that was the right thing to say because you never want to put yourself, and isolate yourself like that. But I think there is a decent chance that eventually 3-4 years down the road when his contract is up, depending on what the NBA looks like at that point, that he can say, you know what? Milwaukee was great. I did my thing here. I won a championship. I want to go to a warm weather city. I'm kind of tired of being in Milwaukee where, it's only nice weather 2-3 months out of the year. I want to go to LA. I want to go somewhere on the West Coast where it's a little nicer, and then I still have an opportunity to win and I can pair up with a legitimate superstar. Because I'm sorry, let's face it, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton are great. Chris Middleton is a former All-Star, but they are not perennial year-to-year All-Star, superstar, box office type guy, right? So you never know. Last thing really quick before I pass it to you and before we potentially move on. So obviously, NBA season's over, but we've got the Olympics coming up. We have the USA basketball team that's already, lost a couple games and what is it? I think they played 4 games already. Devin Booker and Chris Middleton, and I'm not sure if Drew Holiday is going as well, but there are a couple players, right there that are going to be joining the USA basketball team and taking the same flight over there. Huh. That's got to be pretty interesting, that these guys are all going to be on the same flight over to Tokyo. Does Chris Middleton bring the championship on the flight and just sit there and just hold it and say, hey, Devin Booker, you had a chance at this and you lost? I mean, that you know what I mean? Like, just joking aside, but like, that's got to be that's going to be an interesting flight for Devin Booker, I think, to have to sit there knowing that he just lost to Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, and now they have to join forces and go and try to win a championship for their country.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't even know any of those guys. What the hell? Why are they going to the Olympics, man? You just go through the fight. Booker's young, and he didn't win the championship, so might as well go get your championship fix in the Olympics because they're like a top 3 betting favorite to win. Like you're probably gonna end up getting something if you go to the Olympics. But man, Middleton and Holiday do not need to be playing for that team.
I literally got something as we were starting this podcast, so I haven't been able to pull it up on my phone, but I just saw the headline and it said Devin Booker, Chris Middleton, and then I think Drew Holiday were all invited to the USA basketball team, and I'm pretty sure at least Middleton and Booker are going for sure. So I would love to be on that airplane ride. Like I said, I mean, if I'm Middleton, I'm like, hey guys, I get first crack at the championship trophy. I'm taking it with me. I'm not only going to sit here and just, throw it right in Devin Booker's face. I'm going to take it to the rest of the guys.
Jared, all those guys are on the team.
Yeah.
The team is it's Bam Adebayo, Booker, Durant, Jeremy Grant, Draymond Green, Drew Holiday, Keldon Johnson from the Spurs, Zach LaVine, Damian Lillard, Kevin Love, JaVale McGee, Chris Middleton, and Jason Tatum. So that's who it is.
A good team.
Kevin Love's not on the team.
Don't want to get into it.
Kevin Love's not on the team.
Okay.
But neither
don't want to get into it, but that's I'm not as confident in this team. I think they still have the talent to win, but this isn't the Kobe, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird.
Is Giannis playing for Greece, or did they not make it?
I have no idea. Not sure.
It'd be pretty cool. It'd be pretty cool if he's probably not gonna win.
Doubt it.
Yeah, but I put my money on Luka winning before Giannis did in the Olympics. Okay, especially with the break that Luka's got because my Clippers eliminated them in the first or second round? I forgot. So
first too many times on the show already.
First round. Okay, Jared. Here's my question to you. Okay, and it's still the NBA, right? It doesn't have to do with the Olympic team, but the season's over. Okay, we're not going to talk about the draft because the NBA draft doesn't mean as much for, the right now in the NBA. Obviously, it took Giannis and Booker and Ayton a while to get to this spot, right? So nobody in the NBA next year is going to make that much of an impact from the draft. So we're not going to talk about the draft on this podcast, at least right now. But we're going to talk about free agency. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you right now, this is the question I'm going to ask. It's not specific, but will the biggest moment of this offseason be a trade or a free agent signing? What will it be? It will kind of give away what you think might happen, but explain yourself and just answer the question. Do you think it will be a trade or a free agent signing?
I'm going to have to go trade. I'm going to have to say trade. And right. Now these are, early rumblings that we have heard from this specific player about how he's, not necessarily happy with the team, not necessarily happy with the new coach that this team just hired. But a one Damian Lillard Dame time. Obviously he's been in Portland his entire career, and they have had good teams, but they have had to run through the gauntlet that is the Western Conference, and they have never been able to get to the Western Conference Finals, let alone the NBA Finals. So to me, if I'm Lillard, I'm saying, hey, man, you guys are bringing in a first-year head coach in Chauncey Billups. I think he has earned that right to be the head coach. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. But this team didn't necessarily need a new head coach. I think they needed another superstar to go along with Damian Lillard. Now, that's no disrespect to C.J. McCollum. C.J. McCollum is a baller, right? The dude is a bucket. He can put up 30 whenever he wants. Unfortunately, he's not a superstar, a box office guy that will carry your team to the playoffs, in the event that Damian Lillard is not there. And so I in a lot of cases, I frown upon guys a la Kevin Durant, or even LeBron James joining forces with another super team. But in this instance with Damian Lillard, I think he has exhausted every avenue and done everything that he could for the city of Portland and for that team. And I would not be surprised, nor would I, fault Damian Lillard if he legitimately did ask for a trade and his release from Portland to go somewhere else, because he has done his time in Portland. So to me, that would be my answer: a trade. Damian Lillard getting traded to another team, Western Conference or Eastern Conference, would completely shake the makeup of the NBA, and potentially change, who's going to win the championship next year.
So I'm going to disagree with you. I think that it's going to be it's going to be a free agent signing, and I'm not going to say who, but I think Lillard will get traded because he's a quitter and he's quitting on Portland. Because I remember 2 years ago, Jared, coming on this podcast back at the old studio, wearing a Portland Trailblazer shirt, doing a strip tease on the air with all my jerseys of all the teams that had been eliminated and were still there. And I say that I'm now cheering for the Portland Trailblazers because I like the fact that Damian Lillard's sticking with this team and he says he's going to stay there forever. Oh, and look, 2 years later, he didn't win a championship, so crybaby Lillard wants to get out of Portland. So yeah, no, he'll get traded because he's crying. And like I was saying, Durant did it, LeBron did it, And what it looks like is Lillard gets a little spot in Space Jam, and now he's getting a little too up on himself, right? Gets a contract, all that stuff. So no, I don't dislike Lillard that much, but I think it'll be a free agent signing. I think that it's going to be, Lillard could get traded to an unbelievable team already, like the Lakers, like the Clippers, but I think a free agent signing will be a bigger move. I think maybe a Kyle Lowry joining the Lakers will be a bigger move than if Lillard goes to the Knicks. And there's plenty of other free agents I could bring up too. But I'm going to go with the free agent signing. I think a free agent signing will end up having a bigger impact on the NBA next year than the Lillard trade, because I don't think Lillard's going to get traded to one of the super teams. I think he's going to get traded to like the New York Knicks or someone like that. And it won't end up having as big of an impact as we think it does. So hopefully for him, he gets traded to like Dallas or the Clippers, so that the NBA is fair again. And just in case Kawhi leaves,
I have to say your argument is invalid only because you have to now list some free agent players. I mean, we could all say free agents, but like, who are some of the free agent players? I mean, I listed Damian Lillard.
Give me a second.
He's one of the most well known planet, right? And I do agree with you, actually, that if Damian Lillard got traded specifically to the New York Knicks, and then, the Lakers acquired a Kyle Korver or something through free agency to be a sniper and sharpshooter for the Lakers to pair with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, yes, I think that would propel the Lakers more than Damian Lillard would in New York. Because New York, yes, even though they made a nice little run in the playoffs this year, I think Portland is still a better team than New York constructed right now. But I mean, give me a list of free agents here.
Okay.
Because I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's not again a answer for me.
If Kyle Lowry or Mike Conley join one of the teams that needs a point guard, that's bigger than Lillard joining an average team. And here, my bet is if for some reason Leonard leaves the Clippers, that's bigger than Lillard. I'm sorry. Like Kawhi leaving the Clippers and signing somewhere else is a bigger thing than Lillard. So I'll go with the percentage of that. If Kawhi leaves, or if one of those point guards signs with like the Lakers, the Clippers, or the Mavericks, that will be the bigger move. That will be the bigger move.
You sound just like Max Kellerman right now. ESPN First Take. Can't answer the question straight. Your own question that you posed to me.
I'm serious.
You're
I
going
said what will be the bigger
over.
move. I think it's going to be if Kyle Lowry signs with the Lakers. That's bigger than if Lillard goes anywhere else. Because if Lillard, gets traded to like not the Lakers realistically, the Clippers are probably going to have to give up Paul George, and it's not going to be the same thing. But if one of these star point guards joins the Lakers and really kind of fills out that team, the Lakers are the favorite. You know what I'm saying? Or even if one of those guys were to join the Clippers and Leonard and Paul George were still there, the Clippers are the favorite at that point. If Lillard gets traded to Dallas, I don't think they're the favorite. Right? So I think the impact of a championship in the NBA, the free agent signing will be bigger this year. That's my guess. Now, if Kyle Lowry signs back with Toronto and Mike Conley goes back with Utah and Kawhi just signs his player option with the Clippers, then yeah, the trade's going to be big. And if Bradley Beal gets traded, yeah, I'm going to go with the percentage that the free agent signing will be bigger. And I outlined some reasons. DeMar DeRozan, too. DeMar DeRozan is a big free agent as well. He joins one of these super teams. That's a big move. 4 guys right there over 1.
Okay. It's your question, so
Lillard's never won a game in the Western Conference Finals before. So how big of an impact will the guy really be? Right.
Well, just very quickly then to touch on it, I know you mentioned Lillard potentially going to the Lakers in a trade. I, as a Laker fan, would obviously love to see that, and I would welcome that all day long because the Lakers already have big man in Anthony Davis and obviously LeBron James that can play any position 1 through 5. And if you bring a legitimate point guard, which is something that they have been somewhat missing, I think Shooter is a nice piece, but I don't know if Shooter is the main guy for the next 4 or 5 years, right?
No.
You put Damian Lillard on that team, they ain't losing. They ain't losing to the Nets. They ain't losing to the Bucks. They ain't losing to anybody. You compare the rest of the NBA together, and the Lakers are still going to beat any one of those teams. I'm not trading Damian Lillard to the Lakers specifically unless the Lakers gave up AD. Not happening.
Well, yep, that's the next question I was going to ask.
I mean, because realistically, like the Lakers draft picks for the next 3, 4, 5 years mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's true.
And to me, it's more of a thing of okay, who are we going to get in return? Alex Caruso, Kyle Kuzma, Schroeder, Montrezl Harrell. I mean, yeah, like those are some nice role pieces, role players. I mean, I personally love me some Alex Caruso. I think out of all of those guys, I would want to keep Caruso. But none of those 4 make up a Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
Portland, I'm saying, okay, we're going to give up our superstar, our franchise of the last decade, but we're going to get something in return. We're going to pair CJ McCollum and the rest of this team with something, not just more role players. They have enough role players. I just don't think they have. Portland needs another superstar, right? So if they're going to give up a superstar, if I'm them, I'm not making that trade unless the Lakers give up AD, which the Lakers would not give up AD because they just signed him to a long-term contract. So to me, I don't see Damian Lillard going to the Lakers. I think it's more realistic that he would go to New York or another, I could see Dallas potentially, but the Lakers to me just doesn't happen because I don't see the Lakers having enough pieces to give up. Unless Portland was just stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
They're okay with giving up Damian Lillard to another Western Conference opponent and only getting back role players, go right ahead. But I don't think that that's stupid.
Well, I think when you actually look at compare the Anthony Davis trade, for example, to what the Lillard trade would be, it's so mismatched, it's not even funny. Like the Anthony Davis trade, the guys that are on the Pelicans now, like Brandon Ingram's a star player. He made the All-Star. Right. Lonzo Ball got better. Jalen Hart was I believe he was the starter for the team.
Josh Hart.
Yeah, Josh Hart, excuse me. It's like that. That's the kind of trade that works out. Now they had Giannis, or not Giannis, they had Zion as well, too, to pair that team. So that's maybe what helps that out. But that works. Like you said, what, Portland gonna Kyle Kuzma, who averaging 5 points a game, Alex Caruso, who's literally the definition of a role player. He's not a starter in the NBA. KCP can't even do his job on offense. There's nobody. And like you said, the first round picks in the NBA don't even matter after the top 10. You can get lucky with Giannis, who grew 3 inches after he got in the NBA, like nobody has ever
50
before.
pounds of muscle.
Yeah. You get lucky that way, but it's not going to happen. But like you're saying, you're a realistic Lakers fan, Jared, and I can appreciate that, because you're right. The Knicks could get him because the Knicks have nobody already, and they could trade Julius Randle, and they could trade RJ Barrett, not both of them, but one of them, and you have a solid 2 there, probably better than McCollum and Lillard, because McCollum really is only an offensive player, and that's it. He's really not a superstar. Okay, he's only a superstar, considered even closer to superstar, because of Damian Lillard. And you look at the Clippers. They'd have to give up Paul George, but if they still had Kawhi, you could just give up Paul George, and I think that's a little bit of an upgrade at that point, right? For both Portland and or not an upgrade for Portland, but they get a legitimate superstar, especially with what Paul George did by himself in the playoffs this year. Paul George has now earned the right to get traded for a top guy, right, and be considered a top 15 NBA player, in my opinion. But the Lakers, it's not true. And even the 76ers, it's who the hell are you going to get? Ben Simmons? Nope. That isn't agree with it either. You'd have to give up Tobias Harris. Those first round picks don't matter either. Dallas, though, they could sign and trade Tim Hardaway Jr. You could give up Kristaps Porzingis. You could give up, a lot of those role players but they're role players that actually played significant minutes and can score on their own. So it's a little different. But yeah, the Lakers are literally have the worst trade offer out of anybody. It's just because they're the Lakers. That's the only reason anybody thinks they're going to get Lillard. It'd be great. It'd be great for the Lakers, and they're the champs, Jared. I agree with you. They're the champs. You get all the Space Jam crew together, and they're the champs. I don't know. Maybe Lillard gets traded, and they I don't know. They put him in another movie or something to get him on the team. I don't know what's happening. I know what Portland's going to get. You can't trade Portland, movie tickets. All right, it's not going to happen. So yeah, it's
Good.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's gonna be a fun offseason though for the NBA, man. There's a lot of interesting questions with Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard. What's Kawhi gonna do, and how can the teams under the Suns and Bucks make themselves better? It's gonna be an interesting free agent class for sure. What will Chris Paul do too? Would that be shocking if Paul left Phoenix, right? So it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, that's it for this podcast. We'll be back whenever. I mean, Jared, we don't we'll have to figure out next time we're going to be on the podcast to talk. Maybe it will be if one of these free agent signings is happening. But yeah, the NBA season's over. A whirlwind. The Lakers got eliminated in the first round. The Clippers went 6 without Kawhi Leonard. It was a fun playoffs, and the finals was the Suns and Bucks. Who could have expected that? I did predict the Bucks. Let's get that out there that they were going to be in the finals. I did predict the Clippers before Kawhi Leonard got hurt, and I think if Kawhi wouldn't have got hurt, I think they would have made it. So, I'm just saying, even before the playoffs, I was pretty close. So, Jared was on that Lakers hype train. Now he's getting a little more realistic with the Lillard stuff. But
hey, I'm a realistic Lakers fan. It's okay.
It's true.
It's all right.
There's not a lot of those. There's not. I work with a lot of people. They're very unrealistic. I have friends. You guys know who you are. They're very unrealistic about the Lakers. Okay. So my brother's a little delusional about the Lakers sometimes too. So
I mean, listen, in the heat of the moment, yes, I can get a little crazy.
Don't we all though?
But they've been out of the playoffs for a little while now, for over a month, and I've had time to digest and think, right? And now I'm thinking on my feet with my head on straight, and yeah. If the Lakers had shot the NBA Finals right now, probably wouldn't be doing this show. I'd probably still be sulking in bed, and we would have to probably wait a week. But I've had my time to sulk, so we're good.
You would not be allowed to do that because I had to come on this podcast twice after the Dodgers lost the World Series. So I would not allow you to do that.
True.
I would not allow you to do that. But yeah, in fair, hey, Suns fans, I know your pain. Okay, I know your pain. From what happened with the Dodgers. It's okay. And just hope it doesn't happen 2 years in a row and the team's cheated. Like the Bucks didn't cheat. I mean, Giannis is a cheat code, but they didn't cheat. But yeah, that's it for this podcast. Bucks win the championship in 6. Giannis, the Finals MVP, after scoring 50 points in Game 6. What will happen with Chris Paul? What will happen with Damian Lillard, Kawhi Leonard, and everybody in the offseason? It's gonna be fun to watch. But yeah, for this podcast, we are done. I am Nick Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith.
And we'll see you next time, guys. See you.